Hello everyone, welcome to What If Naruto Was in Jujutsu Kaisen Part 2. Before we start, please go support NaruErza for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she calling here because it's translated, so let me clear this. Naruto is a male in this story. Chapter 9. Cough. Suguru Geto coughed several times, trying to breathe in the air that was deprived of him for a few seconds. Behind him, the two little teenagers frowned angrily, ready to fight, but a single sign from Geto stopped them. "Ara, a little Goho Satoru growing," Geto exclaimed, standing up completely, now recovered. Naruto painted a smile on his face, showing his somewhat sharp fangs. Suguru Geto decided to ignore him. Something told him that he couldn't convince the Uzumaki. "You see," Geto spoke again, this time putting one of his arms around Yuta's shoulders. "I want to correct the contradiction that is that of the strong adapting to the weak. It's so distressing." "Sure," Yuta answered without being sure. "Humanity, the lords of creation, are impeding the steps of their own evolution has no sense. Humanity needs to examine his survival strategy," he explained, showing a painful expression on his face, or at least, an attempt at it. Naruto gave a slight yawn as he wiped the small tired tears from his eyes. "And for that I need your help." "With what?" Yuta asked. "You see, I want to kill everyone who is not a sorcerer and make a world only of sorcerers." Silence settled in the place due to surprise. Ha 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 ha. Naruto was laughing as if he had just been told the best joke of all. "I like you, monk," Naruto revealed, stopping laughing, looking at Geto. "Your look reveals the feelings you want to show when carrying out your purpose," he exclaimed, taking a step forward. "Just remember, I hate those who deny the happiness of others," Naruto warned. A chill ran through Geto's entire body from his feet to his head. "If I were you, I would be afraid," exclaimed a voice arriving at the scene. Everyone turned back looking at Goho Satoru, along with several other sorcerers. All from semi-first grade up. "Satoru, so long," Geto greeted, smiling. "First of all, stay away from my students," Suguru Goho demanded. Behind him you could see the school director, Yaga, cracking his fingers, prepared for combat. Even renowned sorcerers like Mei could be seen. "I see. I heard that this year the first years were outstanding. No wonder they are your students," Geto exclaimed. "The last Uzumaki," he spoke, looking at Naruto. "A special grade curse vessel." This time he looked at Yuta. "A toy," he mocked, looking at Panda. "An Inumaki." And he spoke, putting on a mocking smile, seeing the only girl in the group. "The failure of the Zenin clan." "Bastard, inf." "Be careful what you say," Geto interrupted. "In my world we don't need a monkey like you." Plop. With a slap of his hand, Yuta got Suguru off of him. "Excuse me, Mr. Geto, but I don't understand anything you're saying." "But, I won't help anyone who spits on my friends," Yuta shouted. "Excuse me, I didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable." Flush. In the blink of an eye, Naruto and Goho were in front of Geto, standing between him and Yuta. "So, with what intention did you come?" Goho asked calmly. "To declare war on them," he answered. "Next December 24, at sunset, we are going to unleash the pandemonium of monsters and spirits. Shinjuku, Tokyo is going to become the crucible of curses, and Kyoto, in the sacred land of witchcraft, 1,000 curses in each place, with the order to massacre everyone. Let's curse each other all we want." "Doing, Mr. Geto, the stores are going to close," complained one of the girls who came with him. "Is it that late?" "Excuse me, Satoru. The girls are desperate to go eat crepes, so I'm going to say goodbye," Geto exclaimed. "And you think we'll let you go?" Goho asked. "Do not even think about it." Thump. Dozens of curses quickly appeared surrounding everyone. Most were skeletons with their eye sockets on fire. The main curse was in front of Geto, protecting him. He looked like a baby, but he was huge. He had only one eye. And around his neck he wore a necklace made of human heads that he displayed proudly, as if it were a trophy. "My free time is to dedicate to my beautiful students," Geto exclaimed, climbing onto the enormous bird in which they had arrived. "See you on the battlefield," he said goodbye, waving his hand like a child. "See you on the battlefield," he said goodbye, waving his hand like a child. December 24. Shinjuku, Tokyo. The sorcerers watched the hundreds of curses come towards them. All of different sizes and appearances. Nearby, watching everything from the roof of a building, were Geto's henchmen. "There is one who will put up a fight," Goho exclaimed, observing the henchmen. Naruto mentioned, tasting the popsicle in his mouth. "Do you mean the black one with glasses?" "Naruto, that was racist, but am I right?" "But you're right," Goho responded, pointing to his student. "Mr. Goho," Ichichi called, running to the scene. Without anyone noticing, Naruto began to walk away. "It's about the research he asked me about Akatsu," Ichichi spoke, starting to tell what he had found. The expression on the most powerful sorcerer's face suddenly changed. "Naruto, Panda, Toge," Goho shouted, calling them. "I have to send them to school again," he exclaimed, grabbing Panda and Toge and taking them away. Goho clicked his tongue slightly as he didn't see Naruto anywhere. Sometimes his attitude bothered her repeatedly, like right now. Then I'll send Naruto meanwhile, they are alone Geto must be there, I'm almost sure, Goho mentioned, touching the ground with one of his fingers. The Kaka. On the ground, a circle with seals formed, surrounding the pair. If he is there, Maki and Yuta are in danger sorry for asking this, but protect those two with your life he asked, joining his hands in a seal. Panda and Toge looked at each other as they nodded. Okay Panda responded. Shake. Proc. The ground beneath the circle cracked, and in the blink of an eye both students disappeared. Someone has started the fight the curses are being eradicated from their rear, reported one of the agents arriving at the scene. It must be Naruto Goho thought, diverting his attention to the guy meters in front of him, standing on the ledge of a bridge. Their opponent will be me, special grade, exclaimed Geto's strongest henchman, Miguel. Excuse me, but I'm very busy right now, Goho replied, raising the blindfold on his face, showing only one eye. Excuse me, but I'm very busy right now, Goho replied, raising the blindfold on his face, showing only one eye. Plop. Naruto popped a bubble gum out of his mouth as he watched the head of a curse in his hand slowly disappear. Girls now are terrifying, Naruto exclaimed, seeing the pair of girls in front of him. Behind the aforementioned, on an advertising billboard, were 3 agents hanging by the neck, dead. You're only a year older than us, one of the girls roared. Mimiko, this boy may be cute, but he is irritable, she spoke, taking out a cell phone from his pocket. What if we hang him, Nanako? Asked the other girl, playing with a puppet tied to a rope. I don't think you know what kind of treatment sorcerers receive in a shitty village that isn't even on the map, Nanako exclaimed. Good and evil. Play that all. Shut up, Naruto spoke, silencing the girl. Would you say the typical villain speech telling about his past? Well, I'm not interested in the least. If you want to fight, let's fight, the blonde mentioned, motioning for them to come closer. The 2 girls got into position, ready for battle. Crack. Behind them, several meters away, a shadow hit hard on the roof of a building. Miguel. Nanako exclaimed in surprise when she saw her strongest companion sitting with several wounds on her body. What are you doing? Don't you see it? Miguel asked shouting. How stubborn you are. Goho Satoru was behind the subject, standing, without any injury. Naruto, Geto is at school, I'm going to teleport you there. Finish them quickly Goho ordered. I know. Both girls opened their eyes in surprise when they heard Naruto's voice inches away from them. Nanako and Mimiko turned back in fear, seeing their opponent before them. Cough. Nanako flew backwards, spitting blood until she hit the nearest wall. Damn. An elbow to her face silenced Mimiko. The girl fell to the ground on her knees holding her nose, where blood flowed unchecked, finding herself broken. The last thing the girl saw before falling unconscious was Naruto's fist heading towards her. Jujutsu school. Yuta glared at Geto in front of him. Rika stood behind her lover, having fully manifested herself for the second time. Someone has made a hole in the curtain and is approaching quickly, Geto exclaimed. Just as he finished speaking, a shadow hit the ground, raising a light cloud of dust. Naruto, Yuta said seriously. Why is Yuta-chan so serious? Naruto asked, coming out of the dust, showing himself. Why are you in such a bad mood? The sorcerer stopped talking when he saw the situation that was happening. Yuta letting Rika out left little to the imagination. But what made him shut up was seeing Maki, Panda and Toge on the ground full of wounds. I'm touched, they had come running to save Akatsu, right? Geto roared, shouting to the sky with his arms outstretched. Wizards who sacrifice themselves for other wizards, how much compassion, how much respect, I have the world I wanted right in front of me, he exclaimed with tears of happiness running down his cheeks. Naruto was crouched watching Maki. The girl's right leg was bent at an angle where she shouldn't be. A huge wound on her stomach stained the ground beneath her with blood. Suguru Geto, right? Naruto asked, standing up completely. I'm really grateful to you. You have made me remember a feeling that he had forgotten a long time ago. Naruto walked until he was next to Yuta. And what would it feel like? Geto asked amused, preparing for battle. Isn't it obvious? Spoke the sorcerer. Naruto raised his face, revealing his expression. The veins on his neck and face were highlighted. And his eyes reflected only one thing, fury. I'll kill you. Chapter 10. Slurp slurp. Naruto drank his chocolate drink, ignoring the impatient glances of his Koheis. He is rich, and? Nobara asked. So what? Naruto responded confused. And what happened to the fight? The girl exclaimed. Alright. I don't really want to tell it, she mentioned, taking another sip of her drink. Suddenly, Nobara grabbed one of the boy's ears and began to pull. It hurts, Nu-chan. Okay, I'll tell it, he said, making the girl stop her action. In which part did I stay? In the I remembered, Naruto interrupted Nobara, making her angry. Trump crash thump thump. The sound of footsteps and falling buildings echoed throughout the school. Crack. One of the walls was destroyed in pieces. Yuta, accompanied by Rika and Naruto, came out of the hole with serious expressions on their faces. Heal them, Naruto exclaimed without seeing his partner. 6 curses shaped like human fetuses emerged from the hole. They had a grotesque appearance, measuring almost 3 meters each. San no 10th hand. But the clap, the bodhisattva behind him imitated him, clapping his hands, crushing the curses with his palms. Soon, a river of blood stained the ground. To begin with, quantity is better than quality, said Geto, calmly observing everything. Let's see what you're made of, Uzumaki. Geto raised his arm, invoking dozens of centipede-like curses. They crawled with their limbs on the floor and walls, going against the student, who was just standing there watching them go towards him. Ichi no T first hand, but the chop-shaped strike, the golden palm reduced them to dust. Wonderful, Geto complimented, seeing the enormous fissure in the floor, the result of the blow. But, isn't that technique a double-edged sword for you? He asked, smiling, knowing the answer. TSK, Naruto made an annoyed click. The bodhisattva consumed an enormous amount of cursed energy every time it was used. So much so that he could only afford to invoke it about 8 times a day. It's true, Naruto exclaimed. Why use it? When can I use these, he said, cracking his fingers. Fush. Yuta re-entered the scene, next to Rika, still positioning himself next to Naruto. Did you cure them? Yeah. The worm-shaped curse appeared behind Geto, opening his mouth. The sorcerer, without disgust, put his hand into it, pulling out an nunchaku. The mob of curses will be nothing against you, I'd better take care of it personally, Geto exclaimed with a smile. Look at him, the idiot thinks he's strong, Naruto mentioned, pointing and mocking Geto. Yuta unsheathed his katana. Let's teach him a lesson, Yuta. Yeah, fush. The 3 of them disappeared in the blink of an eye. Geto held back the blow of the pair of students with his hands. Naruto turned, landing a kick on the black-haired man's face, sending him backwards. The pair began running again towards their opponent who greeted them with a smile. Naruto was thrown to the side as a result of Geto's right hand. Yuta engaged in a gunfight against the black-haired man without achieving anything. To Geto's surprise, Yuta threw his katana upwards. Naruto stepped over Akatsu, grabbing the katana out of the air. Geto arched his back backwards, avoiding a horizontal cut. Several strands of hair fell to the ground. Oz. The kick from Yuta impacted the renegade sorcerer, cutting off his words. Silence, minority, Naruto exclaimed, punching his opponent's face. Fush. Geto was thrown backwards with his broken nose, going through walls, one after another. On the other side, he was greeted with a blow to his back courtesy of Yuta, which sent him upwards. Cough. Geto opened his mouth, spitting out blood, trying to give himself a minimum of respite. In the air, Naruto held Geto by the neck, starting to spin him, and then catapulted him towards the ground. The floor cracked as Geto's body hit hard. The black-haired man opened his eyelids, seeing Naruto smiling in the air. Tsukumo no T hand 99. Joining his index fingers and thumb, Naruto formed the number 99. The bodhisattva behind him roared, beginning to bombard with a barrage of blows using all of his arms. The ground began to crack, forming a large hole in it. With each blow, Geto sank deeper and deeper. The closest walls and buildings shook with each clap, some buildings even collapsed. The attack stopped, leaving a huge cloud of dust all over the place. What a good blow. Geto was lying on the ground, in the middle of the hole, bleeding. You're very egocentric. Or could it be called self-esteem? Geto exclaimed, standing up. There is nothing more important than that to live. I am no longer going to skimp on quality or quantity. The curse began to come out of Geto's palm. Did you know that there are 16 special grade curses? I asked. This is one of them. The special grade curse, Tamamono Me, appeared in front of him. The whirlpool formed behind Geto. Furthermore, I will take the 4,461 curses that I have and I will turn them into one. Maximum level of curse manipulation, Uzumaki. Spiral. Naruto smiled, bringing his hands up to his chest. Behind him the bodhisattva appeared, opening his mouth. I'm glad I came to kill them before they developed all their power, Geto exclaimed. With a few words of love, Yuta released Rika. The queen of curses opened her maw, charging a beam of cursed power. You bastard, Geto roared. Don't be mean, Yuta answered calmly. This is pure love. Rika spat her cursed power ray straight at Geto. And this is for a just cause, Geto exclaimed, launching his attack. Naruto just smiled. Zero no T0 hand. Naruto's attack joined Rika's, crashing into Geto's. A huge explosion shook the entire school. Several days later, Goho and Yuta were walking towards the school entrance. Hey, Yuta, don't make us wait, Maki shouted from the entrance. Naruto was next to the girl enjoying a popsicle. Everyone was in winter clothes, protected from the cold that had arrived. I hate the cold, Naruto exclaimed, watching the small snowflakes fall to the ground. Don't get like that early. Then I'll buy you a hot chocolate, said Maki, gently hitting one of the blonde's arms. You know how to cheer me up, Mach-an, the boy exclaimed, placing one of her arms over the girl's shoulders, drawing her towards him. Yuta arrived with a smile. Let's go? He asked, excited about the new mission. Yeah. Answering at the same time, the group of Naruto, Yuta, Maki, Panda and Toge walked towards the exit, laughing. All under the gaze of Goho Satoru, who was smiling. Slurp slurp. Taking another sip, he finished his drink. And then we lived happily, eating partridges, Naruto exclaimed, finishing telling his story. Itadori looked at his senpai with a gleam of admiration in his eyes. Fushiguro, well, even his opinion about Naruto did not change. And Nobara was like Itadori, but to a lesser extent. You and Maki-senpai seem very close, Nobara mentioned. Naruto brought one of his hands to his chin, as if he were thinking. I would say yes, Naruto answered. Boom boom, Nobara brought her hands to his chest with a discomfited expression on his face. I think I felt something in my chest, cardiac arrhythmia. The girl thought. Fushiguro took the cell phone from him and opened his eyes scared. Quickly, he grabbed Itadori by the collar, saying something in his ear. It's true, Itadori exclaimed, getting up from his seat, being imitated by Fushiguro. We too have to go. And without waiting, the pair quickly fled the scene. Why did Ida-chan and Megu-chan leave in such a hurry? Naruto asked, wanting to go order another chocolate. Like a flash, Nobara took out her cell phone, looking at the time. 17 p.m. Nobara gave a murderous look. Those two would pay dearly. It's 5 p.m. My favorite clothing store closes in 2 hours, said Nobara, looking at Naruto as if he were a small prey. They were going to help me with the bags, but they are no longer there. Naruto swallowed nervously, having understood why the pair had fled. You won't accept a no, right? He exclaimed hopefully. Nobara just shook her head. Alright. I will accept your puberty, Nu-chan. The pair left the cafeteria going towards the shopping. Both walking side by side at the same time. Do you want? The boy asked, offering him a lollipop. With a smile, the girl just took the candy. On October 31, 2018 at 7 p.m., a curtain with a radius of 400 meters appears, expanding from the Toyoko store in the shopping center in Tokyo. With a gentle breeze swaying his hair, Naruto opened his eyelids looking at the district Shibuya. Nobody knew that day would change the world of witchcraft. Chapter 11. Naruto gave a long tired yawn. He'd rather have sat there watching the clouds roll across the sky, but something told him that being in Shibuya would be more entertaining. His cell phone vibrated when a shaman called with news or something similar. Mashi, the blonde greeted. Naruto listened boredly to the news they were giving him. Meanwhile, he was distracted by unwrapping a new popsicle, ready to eat it. Beside him, Itadori was trying to listen to some of the conversation. In front of the pair of students, there were two other people. Mei and her little brother, Ui. They weren't the best group, but they were strong individually. Although Itadori and Naruto as a team were a danger. Just as they demonstrated against Hanami. They changed our destination, Naruto reported, hanging up the call. The blonde began to walk to the right, being followed. They put a screen identical to the one in Shibuya at the Meiji Temple station, said Naruto, savoring the popsicle. Wait a moment, Mei warned, stopping. The station is on the other side, he exclaimed, pointing to the left. I know, Naruto responded, continuing his course. You three will go there. I will go alone somewhere else, because I am a barbarian. Itadori shook his head slightly. Are you sure they gave you those orders? Mei asked. No, the order is for me to go with you. But I don't want to, Naruto said. I'm free to move the things I want, he exclaimed, continuing to walk, turning his back to those present. Naruto, orders are orders, Itadori mentioned. Plush. Everyone remained in silence. Naruto had disappeared in the blink of an eye, leaving the scene. Let's go to Meiji Station, said Mei, taking the lead from the group. We will run, can you keep up with me? Sure, Itadori answered. Sukuna's vessel turned his gaze back to where the blonde had disappeared. Even to him, Uzumaki Naruto was a mystery. Several minutes later. Shibuya. The little girl hugged her mother's chest in fear. The woman, trembling, responded to her daughter's hug. In front of them were mutated humans with horrible appearances. All the non-sorcerers were being attacked. I have them, the mutated human extended his arm in his direction. Whoa, a devastating kick hit the mutated human's jaw and he collapsed to the ground, dead. His jaw is broken and in an abnormal direction. The blood was cascading down his mouth. The little girl opened her eyelids when she felt a small sting on her cheeks. It's over. Find a safe place. Naruto was crouching, offering the little girl a candy. With his other hand, he helped the woman up from the ground. Look for a safe place, Naruto repeated, slowly going against the other enemies. The 4th grade sorcerer smiled, jumping at the mutated humans. The curtain? He thought. Dodging a blow, Naruto fixed his gaze on the sky, watching as a screen dissolved. That was the curtain that did not let the sorcerers in. Without even seeing, he stopped a right hand with a single finger. The mutated man let out a surprised animal moan. With the curtain down, the sorcerers could move freely around Shibuya. The bar ran, chasing her enemy until she entered a gallery. Nida. The woman was on the ground holding an ugly wound from the edge of a sword. The bar just glared at her enemy. The man looked young. He wore long blonde hair, tied in a ponytail. He was dressed in a black gardener's outfit. The man smiled, amused, and kicked Nida in the stomach. Son of. The bar rushed towards her enemy, surprised to see the weapon in his hand. Isn't that sword the one I threw before? Why did it fall from above? The cut appeared on the girl's right leg. The man threw his sword again, hitting Nobara in the jaw with the hilt. He's hitting me in ideal spots with precision, Nobara thought, falling to her knees on the ground. Can't you get up? The man asked, amused, walking up to the girl, squatting in front of her. Hey, can you get up? Hey. You've gotten stronger since the last time we saw each other, he exclaimed mockingly. Who do I kill first? Keep talking. I have to buy more time, Nobara thought. What do you want? I don't know. They said they wanted to seal Goho Satoru, the boy answered, swinging his weapon as if it were a simple toy. I'm asking you. Oh, me? He laughed. I just do what I think is cool, and this is so fun. Who cares if I have a reason, as long as I have fun. The man brought his sword down, cutting into Nida's left shoulder. Stop, Nobara shouted. With her legs shaking, the girl began to slowly get up. You were able to stand up, the man congratulated with amusement. Before they both attacked each other, Nobara and the man's vision was tinged with surprise. They both froze in their places. Slowly, the pair turned their heads towards the end of the hallway, where a shadow walked out. Oh Nu-chan. Naruto began walking nonchalantly towards them. Hey. Don't you see the situation? Asked the man. Don't come to me like I'm nothing. I have a hostage. The subject brought his weapon back down, but the edge of the sword only hit the ground. Nida had taken advantage of the blonde's arrival to crawl on the ground, leaving a trail of blood. I missed it, the man exclaimed, pouting. I see. The man turned quickly when he felt Naruto's presence behind him. The sword danced through the air, cutting the blonde's muscle. Specifically, ripping off the head of the rabbit, Yusa-chan. I like this shirt, Naruto said with a sad expression. I don't care, the man replied, kicking. The sole of the sneaker impacted Naruto's chest. Eh? He didn't even flinch. It seems like he was kicking steel, the guy thought with fear. Naruto grabbed the subject's ankle with his hands. I really like the bunny a lot. A shadow quickly passed by Nobara until it crashed into a column. The subject slid down the cold tiles until he was sitting on the floor. His nose was completely broken. I would be dead if it weren't for my spell. I have to escape. Naruto grabbed the subject's hair with one hand and raised his head, connecting gazes. You destroyed Yusa-chan's design. What do I care about that shitty rabbit? The subject opened his mouth, spitting out saliva and blood when the blonde's fist slammed into his stomach. The subject's sword, on the ground, began to move, going through Naruto's blind spot. Before he even touched it, a nail hit the hand-shaped hilt, pinning him to the wall. Not on my guard, Nobara said, showing that she was the one who protected the blonde. Son of a bitch, don't get involved, the man roared. Naruto's right hand grabbed the subject's neck, lifting him into the air. You also hurt Nu-chan a little. Hee. I'm sorry, the man apologized when he saw himself with no escape. The subject was thrown backwards through a window until he crashed into the wall of a store, several meters ahead. Definitely, it's on another level, Nobara thought, looking at Naruto and then seeing the enemy embedded in the wall completely unconscious. You're late, Naruto exclaimed mockingly, watching Nanami appear on the scene. The four present in that gallery had different expressions on their faces. Nanami had told them that Goho Satoru had been sealed. Typical of Goho to be persistent even when sealed, Naruto laughed, taking out another watermelon-flavored popsicle. You wait for reinforcements, Nanami ordered, looking at Nida and Nobara. I will go with the Zenins and the others to the BF5 plant. On that floor Goho was sealed, being guarded by Geto and several special grade curses. Currently, all the sorcerers were going to that place. The loss of Goho Satoru would bring an imbalance in the world of sorcery. Me too. No, Naruto cut Nobara straight. Nanami nodded in agreement with the boy's decision. The girl stood up furious, standing in front of the blonde. From now on, only sorcerers with the first grade level will be able to fight, Naruto exclaimed, taking out another lollipop, giving it to Nobara. You would only be a nuisance, he said, looking at the pair of girls. Wait here. Nobara clicked a little annoyed between her teeth and sat down again, starting to open the palette that the blonde gave her. And watching the boy's back leave the place, she put the candy inside her mouth. Idiot. Several minutes later, an earthquake seemed to shake the buildings that were illuminated by flames. In a circle, Itadori was watching Jogo's ashes. However, the marks on the boy's face indicated that Sukuna controlled the body. Sukuna-sama, exclaimed a person arriving on the scene, kneeling. I have come to welcome you. The king of curses turned his gaze, looking at the subject as if he were a fly until he recognized him. Is that you, Urahume? Sukuna asked. It's good to see it after so long. The king of curses put on a small smile. I hope you can dodge the next attack, Urahume. What attack? The shadow appeared, kicking his face, sending him flying into a wall. It seems he couldn't, Sukuna exclaimed with a smile. Hey, I'll only tell you this in a good way just once. Out of the dust came the figure of Naruto walking towards the king of curses. Remove control over Itadori, and if I do not want. Sukuna slowly moved his neck to the sides of him, making his bones crack. Naruto finally reached the King of Curses, pressing his forehead against Sukuna's. Both with their gazes just centimeters apart. It will have to be the hard way. Chapter 12. Flush. Their fists connected with their opponent's jaw. The shock wave behind the impact sent the pair back. Not bad, Sukuna complimented, moving his jaw from left to right, reducing the slight pain. Same thing, Naruto responded, moving his neck, cracking several bones. Both were now meters away looking at each other. Sukuna put a confused expression on his face. In front of him, Naruto brought his hands to his feet, beginning to take off his sneakers. Sorry. I guess it will be a difficult battle, I want to be as comfortable as possible. Naruto finished the action by taking off his shoes, covering his feet with only a pair of socks. Tap tap tap. The sorcerer took a couple of steps until he stopped completely again. Would there be much difference between his power and Sukuna's? It was time to find out. The King of Curses opened his eyelids, impressed to see how time around his opponent seemed to slow down. Naruto's hands traveled to his chest in the form of a prayer. A small golden light was born within them and immediately traveled to his back. The light expanded, forming a large dome behind Naruto. And that same dome, after a few seconds, began to take another shape. An enormous bodhisattva stood in all his splendor. Hyakushiki Kanon Guanyin bodhisattva of 100 types. Sukuna stayed watching that spectacle with a smile on his face. Ichi no T firsthand. Lowering his right arm, the puppet behind the blonde imitated his movement by hitting Sukuna with a chop-shaped blow. A small cloud of dust was generated in the area. Whoops. Sukuna spat a small amount of blood onto the ground. The King of Curses was kneeling on the ground, inside a crack produced by the previous blow. How long has it been since a blow made him bleed? The curse ran one of his hands wiping away the trickle of blood running down the right corner of his mouth. Sukuna directed his gaze forward again to observe his opponent with his hands in the shape of a prayer. Sanoti third hand. The golden palms were directed at his opponent in applause, crushing the aforementioned. The shock wave generated by the attack was enough to shatter the windows of the nearest establishments and buildings. Naruto's gaze was never tinged with surprise. He expected that result. Sukuna was holding his palms with his arms, using only his physical strength. The bodhisattva disappeared again, leaving the user of it at the mercy of his opponent. Entertained Uzumaki Naruto. Sukuna let out a laugh that filled the entire place. And Naruto responded with a smile. The pair of women were silent, waiting for help. Rather, just one of them. The other was waiting for orders not to interfere. You trust him a lot, right? Nida asked, trying to forget the pain of his wounds. The Bara didn't respond instantly. Her gaze was still posed forward, and the candy given by the blonde remained inside her mouth, savoring it. Yes, there are idiots like him, who enter your heart as if it were his house, Nabara responded with a small smile. Nida put on an amused smile. So that's what it's all about, eh? The woman exclaimed, lightly patting the student's back. The Bara earned a small blush. I did not mean that. Not only do I trust him, I also trust the rest of my classmates. The girl defended herself. The first-year student stood up from her seat, pointing at her companion. Do not misunderstand. Stop laughing, Nabara ordered, blushing. I didn't say anything about that, Nida defended. You alone make it understood. They both fell silent when they felt a slight tremor. The lamps hanging from the ceiling swayed from side to side, slowly. An earthquake? Nida asked. Nabara ran to the exit, starting to look everywhere. Really? The student stammered with her gaze looking into the distance. What's happening? Nida asked from her place, unable to move due to her injuries. No, it's not an earthquake, Nabara responded, swallowing nervously in front of the scene. Someone is fighting. The girl's response froze the woman. Was a fight shaking Shibuya? Nabara continued with her gaze focused ahead, in the distance, where she could see the collapse of a huge building. Trump crash. The roof of a building was destroyed, revealing two figures. Is that all, Uzumaki? Sukuna roared. Both opponents were now in mid-air, meters above the ground. Cough. Naruto opened his mouth, letting out a large amount of blood. I'm just getting started, Naruto answered, bringing his hands up to his chest. Before finishing his action, the blonde moved his head back and to the side. A small cut appeared on his left eyebrow. Polished reflexes and years of experience had warned the boy of Sukuna's attack. Whoosh. The King of Curses had caught Naruto's face with one of his hands, beginning to plummet. Rock. Naruto's face was smashed against the roof of another building. Sukuna smiled, applying more force. RRRMBBB. The ceiling broke, and the King of Curses continued stamping the sorcerer's face, floor by floor until he reached the ground floor. Cough. Naruto coughed again. The blood was running down all over his face. The sorcerer was on the ground, taking a breath. Behind him, Sukuna looked at him calmly with his hands in his pockets. Come on, let's go. You can, exclaimed the curse, applauding. Can you hold on a little longer? Naruto looked back with a smile. I told you, it's just beginning, Naruto answered. His sapphire blue eyes sparkled slightly. Sukuna raised his guard, but he still received that hook that sent him flying to the side. The King of Curses went through the wall and fell onto the public road. When Sukuna got into position, Naruto was already in the air. Joining his index fingers and thumb, Naruto formed the number 99. Tsukumo no T99th hand. The Bodhisattva appeared behind him beginning the attack. Sukuna's feet dug into the ground hard. His first palm reached him, beginning to drag him along the ground. His feet dug in with all their strength, but he was pushed back. The King of Curses clenched his teeth with an effort, but finally, he relented. Sukuna was crushed to the ground by his palm, and after only a second, another slap descended, impacting him. Soon, he was bombarded by a flurry of blows that made the entire place shake. A huge cloud of dust covered the entire area. The floor opened, forming a large hole through which both opponents began to fall. Sukuna, with several scratches on him, somersaulted in the air and unleashed an attack. Flush. Neither his reflexes nor his years of experience were enough to dodge the King of Curses' slash. Naruto gritted his teeth as the pain on the right side of his stomach hit him, showing that Sukuna's cut had hit him. Both opponents entered the cloud of dust, briefly pausing the fight. The dark place was illuminated thanks to the moonlight that could sneak in due to the huge hole above them. The dust cleared, showing the pair several meters apart. Sukuna only had small scratches and a small trickle of blood running down the corner of his mouth. Naruto was bleeding from his nose and mouth, and a nasty cut was present on the right side of his stomach. "You will bleed to death," Sukuna exclaimed, discouraged, knowing that the battle was over. "Don't make me laugh." The King of Curses opened his eyelids in surprise seeing his opponent. Naruto raised his right hand and then lowered it, hitting his abdomen. The muscles in that area contracted, stopping the bleeding. "I will die." "Don't brag so much because of a stroke of luck," Naruto exclaimed, smiling. "The battle is just beginning." Sukuna spread a sick smile on his face. "You've entertained me. I will fight you seriously," said the King of Curses. Now it was Naruto's turn to put on a smile. The combat would be on another level. "I guess I'll have to go all out too," the boy exclaimed, closing his eyelids, bringing his hands to the center of his chest. Plop. He gave a round of applause. The ring and little fingers of both his hands descended, and finally the sorcerer joined his palms. Ryoiki Tenkai Territorial Expansion. In ancient times there were 4 families that ruled the world of witchcraft. Keimo, Zenin, Goho, and Uzumaki. Each clan had its special technique that led them to greatness. And what brought the Uzumaki to the top was territorial expansion. An aura began to surround Naruto, who opened his eyelids. Territorial expansion constructed an enclosed space that covered a surrounding area, enveloping the user and opponents. However, in the case of the Uzumakis, it was otherwise. The cursed energy came out and returned to the user's body, giving them different abilities. Some records hinted at extra limbs on the body, 360-degree vision, super strength, and super speed, among other things. Naruto's pupils began to change shape, obtaining the pattern of a lotus flower. The Vijnana perfect enlightenment. Naruto's territorial expansion gave him the power to see the future. With Naruto at 100% and Sukuna about to fight seriously, the second round begins. Chapter 13. Shibuya Station. Abandoned part. Only the light of the moon illuminated that dark place. That abandoned sector of the station. You could see some tracks and discarded wagons, full of dust from the passing of the years. And in the center of everything being illuminated by the light of the satellite, thanks to the huge hole above them, were Naruto and Sukuna. The only thing that changed in him were his eyes, Sukuna thought. "I am very grateful." Naruto recognized his thoughts. SHP. The King of Curses raised his right arm with 2 of his fingers extended. Grateful for everything that made this fight possible, the sorcerer smiled with a small sparkle in his eyes. Naruto tilted his body slightly to the right. A huge gash appeared in the pillar behind him. He has dodged it. Can he even see it? Can this human see my attack? An expression never seen before appeared on Sukuna's face. The King of Curses raised his arms, defending himself from an attack from his right side. That golden palm began to press him harder. Wham! Sukuna was thrown backwards through a column, coming out from behind it. Wham! He continued his course, passing a second. Fush. Finally, Sukuna was embedded in a third column, leaving a hole in it. You fush. Naruto lowered his right arm again, landing a blow with his bodhisattva. Sukuna rolled on the ground until he forcefully stuck the insoles of his feet into the cold floor, stopping his flight. He raised both arms this time. 4 invisible cuts came from his fingers as he attacked the sorcerer. Naruto, even before they reached him, was already spinning in the air, avoiding them. The King of Curses appeared to Naruto's right in a surprise attack. However, a golden palm buried him against the ground before touching him. Another surprise slash came out of the dust, trying to catch the sorcerer off guard. Naruto, without looking, crouched down, letting the attack take its course. From the cloud of dust, Sukuna came out, heading straight towards Naruto. I have you. The King of Curses extended one of his arms, trying to touch his opponent. Boom. 2 golden palms locked Sukuna inches away from Naruto, imprisoning him tightly. The King of Curses used all his strength by simply pushing back his palms so that another attack would hit him head on. Sukuna was thrown back again and crashed into another column. The curse focused his gaze forward, seeing his opponent in front of him. Naruto, in the air, brought his hands to his chest in the form of a prayer, again. In that second in which Naruto's curse technique appeared, a single emotion ran through Sukuna's body. Admiration for his opponent. Another golden palm buried the king of curses further into the rubble. Sukuna came out of the dust going at full speed against his opponent. His gaze studied all the human's movements. Naruto's sapphire eyes shone again. That's it, Sukuna thought. The curse shot back again as a result of another attack. His eyes can see the future, Sukuna analyzed, spinning in the air, recovering. That's why he himself sees my attacks, and he dodges even if I attack from his blind spot. Another attack stopped Sukuna's thoughts. The curse collided forcefully against another pillar, producing a huge cloud of dust. Tap tap tap. Naruto, calm, stared at the smokescreen where his opponent would appear at slow steps. Of all the men, curses, and sorcerers I have faced in these 1,000 years, Sukuna exclaimed. You're one of the most interesting. The sorcerer relaxed slightly. After all those hits, he only has a few scratches, he thought without being surprised. Although he didn't expect anything different. Bravo, Sukuna congratulated. You have my praise. That comment was accompanied by a mocking tone, as if it were an adult mocking a child. The curse should not look down on humans. Naruto brought his hands back to his chest. Another golden palm, horizontally, attacked Sukuna. The king of curses used a column as support and rushed at his opponent at full speed. Another palm slapped to Sukuna, avoiding his attack. The curse hit hard on the ceiling, raising another cloud of dust. Fush fush. Sukuna moved at full speed trying to find a blind spot on his opponent. Cuts shot out of his hands, which Naruto dodged by moving or ducking. Sukuna's plan was easy. Attack until Naruto's cursed energy ran out. His cursed energy is not infinite. Sooner or later he will run out, Sukuna thought. The king of curses hit the ground hard again as a result of another attack. There is no doubt. If I were the one from that time, he thought, remembering his power when he only had a pair of fingers, specifically his fight against Fushiguro Megumi, he would have been exterminated. Naruto narrowed his gaze at him, knowing what was coming at that moment. I'll have to go beyond my limits to stop them all. Here it comes. Raioiki Tenkai Territorial Expansion, Cursed Reliquary. Sukuna activated the expansion of him starting to fight seriously. Dozens of cuts were shot at the sorcerer who received them, deflecting them with 100 palms of his bodhisattva. Fush fush fush. The cuts impacted against the palms that moved at full speed, defending their user. After Sukuna's territorial expansion, the fight did not last even a minute. The only thing that could be seen were hundreds of cuts being deflected by the bodhisattva's palms. Being close to his limit, Naruto's physical and mental senses increased, producing a flurry of hundreds of blows that ignited countless lights among the combatants. And then, the limit arrived. Flush. Naruto looked to the side, watching as his left arm fell to the ground after a clean cut. Sukuna stayed meters from his opponent, undoing his territorial expansion. Uzumaki Naruto, without a doubt, you're the pinnacle of human strength. It was a magnificent battle. Naruto brought his only arm up to his stump, trying to stop the blood that came out unchecked. You lost because you were human, because of that limit in his strength. His race has stopped evolving. They cannot against the constant evolution of curses. Naruto just looked at the ground with the strands of his bangs shadowing his gaze. That was the difference in this battle. Silence took over the place after that brief speech. Naruto opened his lips, letting out a sigh, and then it turned into a thunderous laugh that filled the entire place. Don't underestimate the human race, Sukuna. Naruto raised his head, revealing that his eyes still had that lotus flower pattern. Sukuna, king of curses. You do not understand anything. The terrifying smile spread across the sorcerer's face. The human potential to evolve is infinite. Sukuna quickly looked away from him. A feeling that seemed to have been forgotten over the years attacked him. Fear. The simple look at Naruto's face made Sukuna realize that that human was not lying. And above all, he still had something else. Hey, Naruto called, laughing a little. Do you think I need both arms to activate my ritual? That sarcastic question set off all of Sukuna's internal alarms. The prayers came from the heart. The face of the bodhisattva appeared behind the king of curses. Zero no T0 hand. Two palms gently covered Sukuna, enclosing him. The bodhisattva opened his mouth, charging a kind of beam of light using all of Naruto's cursed energy. Releasing it in a merciless roar. Sukuna tried to free himself using all of his strength, realizing that it was impossible. Raioiki Tenkai Territorial Extension, Cursed Reliquary. For the second time that day, Sukuna, swallowing his pride, extended his territory by counterattacking. The bodhisattva's ray of light came out of the mouth, going against the curse. For a last second, Sukuna connected his gaze with that of Naruto, who was beginning to fall to the ground unconscious from all the effort. I see, thought the king of curses. You planned everything from the beginning. From the beginning it was checkmate. Boom. A huge explosion shook the foundations of Shibuya. Chapter 14. A huge cloud of dust covered the entire place, allowing nothing to be seen. The ceiling seemed about to fall into rubble because of all the cracks it had. Some columns collapsed with the last impact. The cloud continued its course, letting the moonlight slightly illuminate the place, showing some result. Naruto was face down, unconscious, on the cold floor. His eyelids were closed. Blood flowed non-stop from the wound on his left side, where he previously had an arm. He would die if he did not receive any treatment. Tens of meters away from the sorcerer was another person, or what was left of him. Sukuna was lying in a pool of blood, face up, with his eyelids closed. His arms and legs were gone. The subject only possessed his torso, head, and waist. His eyelids opened, revealing a look full of amusement. A smile began to grow on his face. Ahaha. What started as a light laugh turned into a laugh that echoed in that silent place. Ahahahaha, bastard, you almost killed me. The wounds on his body quickly regenerated without leaving any trace of them. Sukuna stood up from the ground, stretching his muscles. His attention was focused on moving his new arms and legs. I thought I was dying. The king of curses walked slowly until he reached the human. Of all the sorcerers and curses he had faced in these 1,000 years, that human was one of the strongest. You're strong, be proud, Sukuna exclaimed. It would be a shame if you died here without having reached your full potential. But those words, Sukuna brought his right hand closer, touching the boy's back. The cursed energy did not wait, and quickly, Naruto's left arm regenerated as if nothing had happened. Megumi Fushiguro was kneeling on the ground, taking some air. That enemy in front of him was somewhat annoying. In the entire history of the 10 Shadows technique, there has been no one who has been able to exorcise this curse, Fushiguro mentioned with his fists facing forward. Stop, the desperate enemy asked, realizing the black-haired man's intention. But this treasure, I invoke you, divine general of the 8 different leaves of the Sila. Demon Mahoraga. The wolves howled, and a shadow formed behind Fushiguro. The black-haired man looked up from him, seeing his enemy. Hey piece of shit, I'm leaving, try your best. As soon as he finished his words, Mahoraga unleashed a right hand, sending an unconscious Fushiguro crashing into the wall of a restaurant. Wait, don't buck with me, wake up once and for all, bucking sorcerer, the enemy pleaded, seeing the shadow of that demon approaching him. Sukuna's expression changed to one of seriousness as he sensed the new presence in the game. What an urgent dilemma, he exclaimed, turning around ready to go to the meeting. Sukuna turned his gaze back. Naruto's right hand gripped one of his heels. His eyes were completely white. Still unconscious, you want to keep fighting, Sukuna mentioned, laughing. You are on another level, Uzumaki Naruto. FWSH. The king of curses disappeared from the scene, leaving behind a defeated sorcerer. Minutes later. Tap. That cold hand, a handful of death, rested on Nanami's chest. Can we chat? Mahito asked. There's no turning back after all. The sorcerer's gaze traveled downward, seeing that hand that would be his final one. What did he want to do in the end? Would Hibara be waiting for him? The pair present turned their attention to the side, where Itadori appeared. Itadori, Mahito whispered, greeting. Nanami, what would he say to the boy? Would he tell him to flee from all that, from that world of sorcerers and curses? No. That would become a curse for Itadori. Itadori, Nanami exclaimed. The sorcerer's body began to deform, but the smile on his face would not be erased so easily. I'll give you the rest. The tone of voice used by the sorcerer was soft, knowing that his wish would be fulfilled and he could finally be at peace. Wow. Nanami Kento's body, from the waist up, exploded, staining everything with blood. You, Itadori whispered without being able to react. However, the blood sailing across the cold tiles brought him back to reality. What the hell do you think you're doing? Mahito. I can hear you, you don't need to scream, Itadori Uji. How long had he been unconscious? Tap tap tap. Naruto stopped walking, observing the scene in front of him. Everything within a 150-meter radius had been reduced to dust, a product of Sukuna's extension of domain. How many civilians had died? With slow movements due to the pain he felt throughout his body, Naruto took out a small paddle from his pocket. With the fight he had and the paddle still intact, Naruto diverted his attention to the small sounds coming from the alleys to the east, several meters behind him. He looked like running steps. As if someone was running or fleeing. No. Sharpening his senses, they were 2 different types of steps. Someone was chasing someone else. Limping slightly, the sorcerer began to trot towards the source of the sound. Step by step. He went into the alleys. Right. Left. He continued jogging for several seconds. Meters away from reaching the corner of an alley, a shadow passed in front of him, disappearing into another. Seconds later, another shadow appeared, chasing the previous one. Naruto gritted his teeth and began to run, following the shadows. I told you not to get involved in this, stupid, the boy shouted. In front of him, Nabara was chasing Mahito. Nu-chan, Naruto shouted again, trying to stop the girl. His muscles seemed to scream from all the effort he was putting in. He's just a clone, I can handle him, Nabara answered without even turning to look at him. The chase continued for several more seconds. Mahito smiled and jumped into the underground. Itadori snapped between his teeth, furious at having fallen for such a simple trick. Mahito began to run, leaving the place. "Come back here," the pink-haired man chased after him, watching the curse turn a corner. To Mahito's Itadori thought, trying to get back together and recover from the damage. However, to the boy's surprise, Mahito just continued running, letting his clone go against him. "I pass by. Why?" Itadori opened his eyelids in fear as he saw a person enter from the other end of the hallway. "Itadori," Nobara exclaimed, confused to see him there. "Fujisaki, run away," Itadori shouted desperately. Naruto appeared on the scene just a second after that pleading cry. "Nu-chan, slap." Mahito jumped into the air, touching the face of the girl who had lowered her guard. The direct hit Mahito mocked with a smile. With the right hand, Itadori destroyed the clone's head. "Nu-chan," Naruto muttered. Naruto gave a somewhat tired huff. His arms were full of shopping bags. Dresses, shorts, makeup, and more. Since that time 3 months ago, Naruto had become Nobara's mule when the girl went shopping. Once a week, in other words. "Stop complaining," Nobara mentioned next to her. The girl was not wearing her usual clothes. A fashionable little black summer dress covered her body. It wasn't unusual to see those two together. Nobara, if she was not with her classmates, she spent her time with Naruto or Maki. All these months she made Nobara understand the kind of person Naruto was. As arrogant as the boy may sound, Naruto cared about the people he loved. He demonstrated this in the school attack last year, where Suguru Geto hurt Maki, Panda, and Toge. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Naruto asked, smiling. Nobara put an arrogant expression on her face, and with one movement she stole the lollipop from the boy's mouth, bringing it to her mouth. "That was mine," the blonde exclaimed with a pout. Without anyone noticing, they had given each other an indirect kiss. "And you?" Nobara mentioned, seeing him. "How do you look at me?" asked the girl. "Like a little annoying little sister," Naruto responded, searching his pockets for another popsicle. The boy never saw the change in Nobara's gaze. "Like sister, eh?" Nobara thought. She wouldn't lie to herself. In these months she had generated feelings for that blonde. Nobara gave a small sigh. "What's wrong?" Naruto asked, having found his next treat. Nobara would keep those feelings inside her. Who knows? Maybe one day, Naruto would change the way he saw her. "So, will you be one of those brothers who protect her defenseless little sister?" Nobara mentioned, hugging herself, trying to give the appearance of a weak woman. Naruto smirked. "I'll surely be there to protect you, Nu-chan, it's a promise." The girl smiled, looking at Naruto. The sorcerer extended his arms forward, trying to hug the girl. Simply to realize that they were separated by meters. The tips of her fingers wouldn't even touch it. "Tell everyone it wasn't that bad," Nobara smiled. Whip, blood stained the floor. Chapter 15. The sun was already setting. The last rays of light bathed the sea, giving a beautiful scene. The foam of the waves reached the shore. Shake. Toge was being chased by Panda playing tag, or something like that. Fushiguro silently observed the horizon, appreciating the sea. Maki and Nobara stepped back laughing, preventing the water from touching their bare feet. Everyone was wearing coats or a jacket. Winter had already arrived, letting the cold take over everyone. Itadori smiled, recording the scene with his cell phone. "Leave that," Naruto exclaimed next to him, taking out the phone. From the shore the others called to the pair. "Life is about appreciating these moments," Naruto mentioned, surrounding the pink-haired man's neck with his arms. "Come on." Itadori smiled, and feeling the blonde's pull, they began to run towards the others. Nobara opened her eyelids in fear, watching Naruto run towards her with a mischievous smile. It was late when she realized her intentions. The blonde caught the girl in her arms and threw her into the water. "Is it cold, Nu-chan?" Naruto asked, laughing. "You tell us," Maki mentioned behind him. Naruto felt a kick on her butt and his face went straight into the water. Everyone started laughing. Nobara screamed furiously when she saw her wet coat. Naruto shook himself like a dog, wetting those closest to him. "My own experience is much better," the blonde exclaimed, smiling. Before Maki fled, Naruto grabbed her by her jacket and threw her into the water. Itadori fixed his gaze on Fushiguro. "Don't you dare, bastard," the black-haired man exclaimed, starting to run. The pin cat knocked Fushiguro over, causing them both to fall into the water. "Escape," Naruto shouted, pointing at Toge and Panda, who were running meters away. The blonde began to chase them, followed by Itadori. "The Kaka, Pandas don't get wet, nu." Fushiguro ran his hands through his hair with a smile growing on his face. The bar's fury soon turned into laughter. A laugh that infects everyone. The clouds obliterated the rays of light. The waves, the messages in the sand. The wind erased the silence. But that afternoon, nothing could erase everyone's smiles. For some reason, memories of that day flooded through her head. Naruto silently watched Nobara's body lying on the ground. Her eye had exploded, leaving a hole in that place. The floor, previously white, began to turn red from the girl's blood. "Fujisaki," Itadori murmured. The pink-haired man's face had been stained with the blood of his companion as he was the closest. The defeat against Choso. the Sukuna massacre, Nanami Kento's death, and now this. Itadori's heart had reached its limit. Seeing him motionless, Mahito rushed towards him. He was a real curse. Black flash, Mahito's blow impacted Itadori. The pink-haired man was thrown backwards, crashing into the ground. The momentum generated sent him towards the ceiling, and then he fell back to the floor. Mahito extended his right arm and caught Itadori. Laughing, he pulled him towards him and gave him a small slap. The kick shook the pinkette's torso. Another kick hit him in the head. Completely defeated, broken, Itadori received all the blows without defending himself. Blood was running down his nose and mouth. This is a war, don't be confused thinking it's a fair battle. Mahito landed another kick to Itadori's chest again. Not even a fight for what is right, you and your fragile justice. The instincts of the curse were the opposite of what humans call dignity. Mahito killed people without thinking, and Itadori saved people without thinking. The curse turned its gaze towards the girl's body. It was strange that the other sorcerer had not yet entered the battle. Naruto stood quietly in front of Nobara's body. Mahito smiled, another one was mentally broken by him. Switch, the clone of his came out from behind him going against Naruto. Meanwhile, original Mahito kicked Itadori's head again, enjoying the beating. Hey, get up. It's not funny anymore, Naruto mentioned without taking his eyes off Nobara's face. The boy squatted down, and with fear, he caressed the girl's cheeks with his fingertips. He could feel the temperature shock. Her fingers warmed against skin that was beginning to cool. Come on, Naruto murmured, caressing those cheeks again. Next week we would go shopping, remember? Despite his personality, Naruto treasured everyone he loved. Otherwise, he wouldn't be at school, he wouldn't be with his friends, he wouldn't be in this place. Someone to heal her. Mahito's clone stood next to Naruto. He will heal her, he will be able to. The clone kicked Naruto's head. You will die too, exclaimed the clone. I will die. So you're not here to heal Nu-chan? The clone began with a barrage of blows to Naruto's head, who did nothing to defend himself. However, despite the blows, none of them moved Naruto an inch. It was as if the boy was anchored to that place. Click click, tears ran down his face, hitting Nobara's cheeks. The salt water met the fresh blood. How the hell do you plan to beat someone who didn't even realize that? Original Mahito asked. The curse was standing, and in front of him on the ground, Itadori. Tell me something, Itadori Uji, have you ever started counting the curses you have killed? He did not receive a response. The sorcerer did not move. His face, all bloody, showed no sign of response. No, right. Well, me neither. The truth is that I don't care about the number of humans I have killed, Mahito revealed, raising his right arm, turning it into a blade dot, and I will also end up forgetting about you. Clap. But the sound of applause, Itadori disappeared from the scene. My brother. Mahito turned around, observing a new guest on the scene. Get up, my brother, our fight has only just begun. Everything, Itadori whispered. Mahito licked his lips. Had that sorcerer with the scar been the one who put Hanami on the ropes? Fush. A shadow flew in front of Mahito until it stuck hard against the wall. The curse saw in surprise the decapitated head of his clone buried in the rubble. A powerful bloodlust filled the entire area. Those present felt their feet dig into the ground for a brief second. Directing their attention to the other end, they could see the exact moment where Mahito's clone fell to the ground decapitated, falling apart. Naruto stood up and arching his back, he began to laugh. His bangs covered his eyes, revealing the tears running down his cheeks. Naruto raised his right arm and pointed one of his fingers towards the sky. His laughter and tears stopped. If they didn't help him, then he would. If they got in his way, then he would kill them. The golden aura surrounded Naruto. Uzumaki? Todo whispered. Mahito unconsciously took a step back. Nobody had taken a certain detail until now. With Goho Satoru sealed, the strongest sorcerer stood before them. Your name was Mahito, right? Naruto asked, connecting glances with the curse. You, he exclaimed, extending his arm, pointing at him. You're in my way. Chapter 16. But Goho Satoru sealed, Uzumaki Naruto was the strongest sorcerer. The golden aura enveloped the student's body in a calm, serene manner, covering him with indescribable warmth. However, it was the complete opposite for the others. Everyone observed a dark aura surrounding Naruto that emanated negative feelings. I can't fight anymore, Itadori whispered on the ground, hugging himself, completely emotionally broken. Sukuna, he killed a lot of people. I promised to save them, but I couldn't, he shouted, starting to cry. The things I believed in, it was nothing more than an excuse I made for myself. Dodu, seriously with his arms crossed, watched his sister in such a pathetic state. I can't forgive myself anymore. His mere existence causes death. Mahito smiled at the pink-haired man's words, with the idea of launching into finishing it. Come, the curse turned its attention back to the subject in front of it. Naruto had spoken with a completely serious tone. All traces of his usual mockery were gone. I don't want to stain this place anymore, Naruto exclaimed, seeing the bar motionless on the ground. Follow me, he ordered, starting to walk slowly towards the exit of the station. Mahito stood still in his place as beads of sweat ran down his face. His gaze was fixed on the sorcerer's back. He had completely let his guard down on him. Todo narrowed his gaze at the scene. He should take the opportunity to save his brother, and that's what he would do. The curse showed a mischievous smile, starting to walk slowly following the sorcerer. The footsteps echoed in that silent place, crashing against the tiles of the walls. His smile grew even more. Bigger, sicker. He would do the same thing to that Nabara girl, he would deform her face. His pupils dilated, and Mahito jumped towards his prey, extending his arms. A single touch would be enough to kill Uzumaki Naruto. Tap, the sorcerer took a step back, tilting his body to the side. The curse attack continued past without connecting with his target. Mahito found himself confused for a slight second as he didn't hit his opponent. And fear began to appear throughout his body. Naruto looked at Mahito without any hint of emotion in his gaze. Cough, the curse opened his mouth, spitting out blood. The sorcerer's right leg had connected brutally against his stomach. Faced with the momentum, Mahito was lifted upward, crashing hard against the ceiling, but not even that structure stopped his flight. KRK, cracks appeared throughout the structure, and Mahito's body broke through the ceiling, continuing to rise into the air. Fush, Naruto jumped through the hole his opponent had made. His feet touched the ground, and the air of the city hit his lungs. His gaze focused upward, watching Mahito rise to the heights of the buildings. His palms were once again placed in the shape of a prayer invoking the Bodhisattva. Gravity began to take effect, and the curse began to descend round and round in the air, unable to move due to the pain. Shit, they were the only words that the curse could whisper in front of that approaching palm. Mahito was thrown backwards through a building, but his flight did not end there. His body continued passing through everything that was in its path. Restaurants, buildings, houses. And in the midst of that pain, Mahito could only think about how stupid he had been to follow him. After 400 meters, the body of the curse was embedded against a wall. The strands of his hair hid his face, leaving only blood flowing from that place down his chest. His left arm was broken. His right had all his muscles torn. His left knee pointed to one side, while the ankle of that same leg pointed to the other. He was going to be killed. But despite everything, Mahito wanted to keep fighting. He was so close to the true essence of his soul. He raised his head trying to smile like a child, but his appearance didn't help him at all. His left eye was closed, his right eye had a leak. His nose seemed to have been erased. His jaw hung unsupported, broken, letting the blood flow from it unchecked. And slowly, thanks to the regeneration that each curse presented, each wound began to disappear. Without any scratches on him, Mahito rose from the ground to fall back into a sitting position. Despite being cured, his fatigue was taking its toll. Tap tap, the footsteps echoed through the place again. No, it was more than one person. Oh, the useless guy is back, Mahito exclaimed, seeing a certain pink-haired man. Naruto, Itadori, and Todo stopped meters from the curse. And now? Mahito asked, preparing for battle. Todo tore his shirt, leaving his torso exposed. Itadori with a serious look got into a fighting stance. Isn't it obvious? Naruto asked with a hint of mockery in his voice. The sorcerer raised his arm pointing at Mahito. Divine punishment, the 3-on-1 fight begins. Chapter 17. To their surprise, Mahito was the first to rush towards the trio of sorcerers. Fush, Naruto was left facing the curse. Mahito smiled sickly. He was so close to the true essence of his soul. Clap, but the sound of a clap, Naruto disappeared, showing Itadori in his place. The cursed energy swirled in the pink-haired man's hands, who raised his head, revealing a concentrated look. Black flash, Mahito covered that blow with his right arm, which broke upon contact, revealing the bone protruding from the skin. Naruto appeared behind him, launching a kick. Mahito turned around, with his regenerated arm, launching an attack with his other arm taking a spear shape. Clap, the blonde sorcerer disappeared from the place again, avoiding the attack. With Naruto and Itadori attacking, and Todo in the rear helping them, it would be an almost impossible battle for Mahito. And he knew it. The first to fall would be that human called Todo. Would one blow be enough to kill him? Itadori's soul is at 10%. The blonde's is at 50%, and mine is at 40, thought the special grade curse attacking again. It was all the fault of that woman, Nabara. I'll finish this annoying technique first. From Mahito's left hand, a modified human shot out at Itadori, and his right hand deformed, transforming into a kind of whip going against Todo. Clap, Todo appeared in front of his sister. Change of place with something inert, Mahito thought, surprised. Everything indicated that Todo could also use the cursed energy of modified humans. Naruto fell from above with his leg covered in black lightning. Black flash, the downward kick hit the curse's head, burying it in the ground. BLRGH. Something was starting to come out of Mahito's throat, going up from his stomach. That movement alerted the trio of sorcerers, who took a step back, attentive. With almost no energy, Naruto couldn't activate his territory, even if he didn't want it either. He would use his own fists to end Mahito's life. Lech. The curse opened his mouth, vomiting dozens of modified humans that fell into his hands. Mahito seemed to be on another plane, his pupils were beginning to blur, leaving his eyes blank, saliva and vomit ran down the corner of his lips. The curse seemed ecstatic. Multiple souls organic rejection. The modified bodies grew in size, attacking in all directions, preventing them from changing location. This guy is picking up the pace, Todo thought, dodging the attacks. Naruto and Itadori began to run, weaving between the modified humans. Let's go, Itadori, this is the last chance for us to curse each other. The bodies joined together forming a platform meters above the air, where they all fell waiting for some movement. As if it were a spiderweb, branches came out of the platform, clinging to the buildings. Flap. Naruto appeared behind Mahito's back, kicking behind his knees, throwing him off balance. Before he fell back, Naruto landed a knee to his back, lifting the curse's feet a few inches off the ground. Itadori met him head-on with a blow to the face that broke his nose. He couldn't even make a scream when Naruto hit his liver with a hook, knocking all the air out of him. The pink-haired man raised his leg, determined to destroy Mahito's head even more. The head of the curse came decapitated from his body. Did he decapitate himself? Itadori exclaimed when he saw that his attack never touched him. Two small tentacles came out of the curse's neck, and at the end of each one, an eye. Mahito's arms took the shape of mantis-like blades, and he attacked. Itadori jumped back, dodging. Naruto arched his back backwards in the most Matrix style. The attack grazed the tip of his nose. His arms deformed again, traveling backwards, obtaining the appearance of Mahito. The curse reformed meters ago, but this time leaving his torso exposed. Multiple souls. The weak souls that had been rejected were united, creating a more corporeal body. From Mahito's hands, a modified human was formed standing on both of his legs. His body looked human, the only thing that differentiated him from one was the shape of his head. Todo was interrupted from his thoughts by the blow of that modified human. Todo, Itadori shouted. The muscular boy, who loved tall women, was thrown through the windows and walls of a building. The modified human let out a small sort of laugh and jumped following the boy's course. He will be fine, concentrate, Naruto warned. Without Todo, it was time to attack. Mahito placed his hands on the ground and dozens of whips with deformed faces emerged against a pair of sorcerers. Naruto grabbed the pink-haired man's shirt collar and turning, threw him towards Mahito. Naruto raised his guard, receiving the attack that sent him flying against a building. Itadori kicked the curse's chest, who grabbed the boy's ankles and threw him to the ground. The pink-haired man rolled on the ground several meters, reaching the place devastated by Sukuna. On that ground, nothing remained. Everything had been cut, leaving in the middle of Shibuya an empty circle similar to a desert. Mahito ran against Itadori, trying not to leave him any breathing space, but when he arrived he alone watched the boy accompanied by Todo. Fush. The curse turned its gaze back, seeing Naruto meters away without a scratch. It was all or nothing. Mahito smiled madly, opening his mouth, several hands inside are joined together forming seals. Territorial expansion of 0.2 seconds. The pink-haired man ran towards the curse. Everything. Insert Jujutsu Kaisen Ost. Remember, the sorcerer's left hand was deformed and cut off. Mahito smiled in front of Todo. After territorial expansion, each person's ritual dissipated for a few seconds. In other words, a touch from Mahito wouldn't kill Todo. The black rays appeared in the fist of the curse, who widened his smile even more when he saw the unprotected sorcerer. Ichi no T firsthand. The golden palm buried Mahito in the ground before he landed his blow. Get out of here, Naruto ordered, landing next to the sorcerer. Todo just smiled and extended his only hand, colliding with Naruto's right. Flap. Todo appeared in Itadori's place a few meters away safely, and the pink-haired boy appeared next to Naruto. From the cloud of dust, a voice rose. Multiplication of souls. Another modified human came out of the dirt running towards the pair of students. Itadori raised his arms and began a barrage of blows against the new opponent. Naruto bolted towards Mahito, who was acting strangely. Uzumaki stopped mid-journey, watching as the body of the curse began to deform and form, giving a grotesque scene. But not even think about it. Spending almost the last of his cursed energy, using his ritual for the last time that day, Naruto positioned his hands in a prayer shape at the height of his chest. The golden palm slammed Mahito into the ground. On the other hand, Itadori defeated the modified human with a kick. Mahito shouted furiously. His eyes only showed anger as he stared at Naruto. I was so close to getting the true essence of my soul, he shouted the curse angrily as small drops of saliva escaped from his mouth with each scream. I curse you, Uzumaki Naruto, I'm going to enjoy killing you just like I did with your friend. Phew. The wind blew, carrying Mahito's words with it. The student's blonde hair swayed in the breeze. Ida-chan, Naruto exclaimed in a dangerous tone of voice. Fush. Itadori appeared behind Mahito's back. Let's kill this son of a bitch. Sukuna's vessel landed a spinning kick to the curse's head, stunning it. Mahito opened his mouth, spitting out saliva. Naruto's fist was inserted into the opponent's stomach with such force that the curse rose several centimeters from the ground. Both Naruto's and Itadori's eyes were completely blank. The look of a beast. An uppercut from Naruto made Mahito spit saliva. Another blow from Itadori shook the head from the curse again. A kick to the stomach made Mahito double down. Naruto grabbed the curse by the hair, raising it again. A brutal right hand hit Mahito's face, destroying all of his teeth. Itadori launched a low kick, breaking the enemy's right tibia into 3 parts. Naruto extended 2 fingers of his left hand, gouging out Mahito's eye. At the same time, a hook hit the sides of the curse, destroying its ribs. Itadori, furious, put Mahito's chin out of place with an uppercut. The gray-haired man's body couldn't even fall when Naruto grabbed him by the hair again. Fush. The blonde hit a powerful headbutt, destroying his nose. Naruto crouched down, bending his knees. Mahito was beginning to fall to the ground. The sorcerer's right fist began to fill with black rays. Itadori jumped over Naruto, remaining in the air, as his right fist was filled with black rays. Black flash, they shouted at the same time. Naruto's fist hit the stomach, destroying most of the internal organs. Itadori's fist hit his face, tearing off his lower jaw. His nose flattened, giving the appearance he never had. Mahito was thrown dozens of meters forward, rolling on the ground until he remained motionless on the ground. Naruto took a long breath, still in place. "Senpai," Itadori called seriously. "All yours," Naruto replied, looking up at the sky. "I spent the last bit of damn energy I had left, I can barely move." Itadori just nodded, starting to walk. Tap tap tap. Mahito opened his only eye, seeing Sukuna's container approaching him. He tried to speak, but it was impossible. He had lost his entire lower jaw. "You were right, Mahito." Itadori stopped in front of his enemy with a completely serious expression. "I am you," the sorcerer admitted. "He wanted to deny what you were. I didn't pay attention to what you were saying. But now it's different. I just want to kill you," he exclaimed, letting fear seep into Mahito. "And if you are reborn as another curse, I will kill it too. Even if you change your name. Or appearance. I will kill you again and again." As best he could, Mahito began to get up but fell to the ground again. Like a baby, he started crawling, trying to escape. "I no longer need any reason to do it. The hunter and the prey. The wolf and the rabbit." Mahito was crawling on the floor, trying to escape until the side of him collided with some shoes. "The hope." Mahito raised his gaze upwards, meeting Naruto's cold, piercing blue eyes. Hope vanished. End of the game. Chapter 18. Well, here we are at the final chapter. Don't worry, the end of the first part. Next year there will be the second load of more fights. I hope you like it. The special grade curse only looked up from him to observe Uzumaki Naruto. End of the game. The expression on Itadori's face transformed from fear to seriousness in a second. His legs took a step and soon, he started running towards Naruto. "Do you need help, Mahito?" The voice was heard behind Naruto. "Senpai," Itadori shouted, stopping short at the scene. Threads of blood ran down the corner of Naruto's lips and he was surprised to see the tip of a sword protruding from his stomach. "I guess this counts as a little revenge," the voice behind the sorcerer's back mocked. "You know, Uzumaki, because of last year." Cough. Naruto coughed up blood staining the ground. His weakened gaze traveled back, watching Suguru Geto firmly holding the handle of the sword that was piercing him. The traitor smiled and using his strength lifted Naruto into the air, still with a weapon stuck in his stomach. Fush. With a slight movement, Geto launched Naruto meters away. The sorcerer's body rolled across the floor until it remained motionless in that wasteland. The ground beneath the body began to dye red. Without the sword now in his stomach, blood poured out of his body without stopping. His sight only focused on the horizon. His eyelids were asking for a break. "Ida-chan." Naruto whispered with his voice already muffled. His ears barely heard Itadori's screams calling him, but with every second that passed, he heard himself broken and with less force. He blinked again, looking confused at the figures of all his companions in the distance. Another blink and they were gone. Rest. Uzumaki Naruto closed his eyelids without opening them again. 23 cities lay almost destroyed. Japan was chaos. Suguru Geto had absorbed Mahito, obtaining the technique from him. And with that acquired, Geto broke the seal of the cursed objects, releasing 1,000 malevolence. People who had ingested cursed objects like Itadori. People with cursed techniques whose brains were destined to be non-sorcerers, like Junpei Yoshino, tuning their brains for witchcraft. For some, the strength to be vessels, and for others, the ability to use cursed techniques. It was starting again. The world as in the Heian era. The golden age of cursed techniques. He opened his eyelids, blinking several times, getting used to the light. An old Japanese wooden ceiling was the only thing he observed. "Uzumaki-senpai." Naruto began to slowly get out of bed, sitting with his back against the wall. Fushiguro was resting in a chair next to him. "I want some candy," Naruto exclaimed, still in pain. Bandages covered his entire stomach and some gauze covered his other small wounds. As if he knew what he would say when he woke up, Fushiguro took out a box of chocolates, giving it to Naruto, who immediately began to eat them. The blonde just chewed in silence listening to Fushiguro who updated him on everything that had happened while he was asleep. Noritashi Kamo has organized a battle to the death between people who use curse techniques, annihilation migration, said Fushiguro, darkening his gaze. My sister is involved. Wow, Naruto exclaimed, savoring the watermelon-flavored popsicle in his mouth. Yes, everything went to shit, you're here for a reason, he mentioned, looking at the other person in the room. Yu-chan. The Katsu uncrossed his arms as he nodded. The sorcery headquarters gave me the order to assassinate Itadori Yuji, Yuta exclaimed seriously. Naruto narrowed his gaze dangerously. Don't worry, I'll just fake his death, Akatsu said. Goho-sensei asked me to take care of the first years. Besides, Itadori is someone important to the people I care about, he exclaimed, smiling. I see. Uzumaki-senpai, tomorrow we will leave in search of Itadori, Fushiguro mentioned. Come with us, we need your help. An uncomfortable silence settled in the room. I refuse, Naruto said, taking out another candy from the box. Naruto raised one of his hands stopping the pair's imminent protest. It will be a battle in dozens of scenarios, said the sorcerer. By going all together to one place we will delay everything, especially when allies are needed for the upcoming battle. What do you suggest? Yuta asked seriously. You two go in search of Itadori, and I will go in search of another ally, or possible, Naruto exclaimed, laughing at the last bit. Boo. Kinji-chan. Hikari Kinji, Naruto answered. Araki, the third-year student who had been suspended. He has a bad mood, but in terms of power Yuta expressed. He is at our level, he revealed, pointing to himself and Naruto. He's an idiot, but a good idiot, the blonde spoke. Surely the headquarters will send another sorcerer for Itadori, be careful with that, he said, looking at Yuta. The black-haired man only nodded at the words. A new era was about to begin. Insert Jujutsu Kaisen OP1. The next day. 7 a.m. The group made up of Naruto, Yuta and Megumi were outside the school. In Shibuya, Itadori and Choso were fighting a group of curses. Maki and Toge waited in the infirmary until their wounds healed. Naoya Zenin left for Shibuya with the objective of assassinating Itadori Yuji and Megumi Fushiguro. All the pieces on the board began to move, bringing with them a new era. What the hell are we waiting for? Naruto asked tiredly. The group had already been standing still for several minutes waiting for a person. Your partner, Yuta answered. Huh? Buddy. Naruto turned his feet in the opposite direction and began to leave the place. I work alone, I don't need a partner, the blonde exclaimed, taking out a small lollipop that I brought to his mouth, tasting it. The figure was walking up the stairs with slow steps. Are you sure, Uzumaki-senpai? Fushiguro asked. Naruto didn't respond and just continued walking with his back to the pair. Tap tap tap, the figure finished climbing the stairs appearing on the scene. That's how things are, huh? Naruto stopped dead when that tone of voice reached him. Yuta, you, Naruto whispered. Akatsu smiled. Goho-sensei asked me to take care of all the first-year students, all of them, Yuta said while his cursed energy manifested from one of his fingers. My reverse ritual allows me to heal any wound. Naruto turned around looking at the newcomer. The female figure began to walk towards the sorcerer. I told you to stop eating crap, you'll get cavities, the woman mentioned, snatching Naruto's lollipop from her mouth. A small breeze ruffled the girl's light brown hair. Her right eye, of the same color, observed the boy's sapphires. The left side of her face was covered by a black patch, covering the loss of that eye and hiding the scars from her wound. Did you miss me? Did you cry for me? The girl asked mockingly. Naruto smirked, getting the sweet return from her. Your look full of worldly desires remains the same. I like that, Nu-chan. A smile spread across Nobara's face. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.